A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to Multiple Wheels of Steel. Today, it's day 5 out of 29 that I plan on doing for this whole year, at least for this first season. And right behind me, this is pretty much one of the most recent vehicles that I might have ever had the chance to do in terms of reviewing. And so, as you can pretty much tell, the Lincoln Nautilus is certainly not going to be the only thing that I'll do that's relatively newer in terms of models that I will be reviewing for this series. This is the 2019 Jeep Grand Cherokee. And if you're already familiar with another episode of Multiple Wheels of Steel that I uploaded not too long ago, then you'd probably remember that one model in particular was a 2001 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo. And if you don't, well, remember that, then well, let's go ahead and turn back time a little bit. So I'm glad I got myself a little like chapstick storage thing to keep this around like that. There we go. Well, anyways, let's go ahead and review this thing. Yeah, so as you could pretty much see, it's an 18-year spread between this 2019 model and a 2001 model that I also have pretty much. And as a result, I'm going to go on ahead and get this one taken care of as well. Only because I now have the right permission to do so. And so, without further ado, let's go and get started. I got my recording specs on me, so this way I could safely review this thing with both hands free. Also, to have safe driving, pretty much. So, let's get it on. Like the 2020 Lincoln Nautilus that I reviewed earlier this month, this Grand Cherokee comes standard with a smart key access system in which that you can have this key fob on you that doubles as the way to lock and unlock, as well as panic, which can be useful in case somebody's trying to steal this car in particular. But when a smart key access system is inputted, you just simply keep the fob inside your pocket, and you can use a touch sensitive bar that's behind the vehicle to unlock, and this button to lock it pretty much. Just like that. So let's go inside the vehicle and shut it, because what we got here is a unique cluster system that is in fact not only a much higher step up than the 2001 model that I reviewed earlier this year, but it also does set itself pretty far apart from most other vehicles of its time. At least for a 2019 model, this does have itself quite a bit of a story to tell you. To start this vehicle, it's as simple as putting your foot on the brake and using this push-mounted start button. The center console is going to illuminate to showcase which gear that you're currently in, and this vehicle does come standard with an automatic gearbox, but you do in fact have the option to also use manual mode, which can be accessed by simply turning the stick to the left and utilizing the plus and minus buttons right here, which can of course be done by pushing the stick forward and backward to heighten or lower the gears in various positions. But the manual system can also be accessed thanks to paddle shifters, which are situated behind the steering wheel. And I do have these disabled for safety reasons, for the most part. This vehicle is currently 40,242 miles in the odometer, as it certainly has gotten a lot of use and has been very reliable as opposed to the two older vehicles that I currently have. Soon enough I will be getting a much better vehicle though, because this one's already getting a lot more use than possible. But as you can see, we have the basic gauge cluster alongside a screen, which can of course be changed in different ways by utilizing these directional buttons. Pressing up or down allows you to scroll to different pieces, including messages, radio system, as well as the potentially accurate fuel economy, pretty much. But for the most part, we typically keep this as a way of knowing how fast we're going in this vehicle, which can be done just like most other vehicles, either miles per hour or kilometers per hour. And you can also set it to either an analog gauge or a digital gauge. We keep it at digital, mostly because it's a bit easier to understand. But this vehicle does also have itself quite a bit of other functionality in it, making it a much more advanced model than the 2001 model. Certainly a huge step up by any means. Like the 2001 model though, this also comes standard with some cruise control, which you can in fact set higher or lower, and you can also stop if you feel like it. This vehicle is also capable of allowing you to have cruise control at all times, even when you feel like you have to brake. It will automatically allow you to brake without causing any issues. And here is the lighting control. Have it set for automatic in terms you want the headlights to come on automatically, and then of course your brightness in terms of allowing the digital display to illuminate as bright or as dim as you like. And down here is the fuel can pretty much, because at any time and point that you might feel like it, you can simply use this button to unlock the fuel cap. So this way you can simply refuel with ease. You also have your basic power mirror setup, which can in fact be done by pressing the button L or R, in which case you can simply adjust your windows with these. Then of course you have two automatic windows for the driver and passenger. But unlike the Lexus ES330, if you remember that, the back windows are not automatic, which certainly is not very good by any means. Over here, you have yourself your own entertainment system, complete with radio, media, which does include Bluetooth connectivity, telephone usage, compass, climate, which is in fact dual zone, as you can see. Independent zones for both the driver and the passenger, which can be set up thanks to this backlit LCD screen, as well as front and rear defrost, air conditioning, as well as recycling. And here are the hazards. But you can also turn the screen off at any point. You want to touch it to turn it back on, that's also fine as well. This vehicle certainly is jam-packed with a lot of nice, useful quirks. Even has itself sunglass storage. Not to mention a lot of different interior illumination. So let's see what we can do by simply allowing the exhaust note and the RPM gauge to climb upwards. And now let's go ahead and shut it down pretty much. This Grand Cherokee in particular does also include itself a rather spacious compartment set in the back right here, because as you can see, it's pretty impressive considering how much of a step up this is from the 2001 model, indefinitely allowing it to be a bit more practical. Even comes standard with a 12-volt DC input outlet over here on the back side in case you want to charge any devices. You also got these little engraved mounts over here, which can be useful if you want to connect any sort of cable, which this vehicle did come with. But unfortunately, we don't actually have it around here, so I unfortunately can't really show it to you in the same way that, well, most people probably would. Down here is where you can find a spare tire, and it's way down obviously, so I won't be able to show it to you. But that's okay, because we do have ourselves a lot of other things to look at here on the outside. This vehicle does have itself standard Firestone tires equipped with aluminum alloy rims, which also utilize 5 particular lug nuts that are a bit more advanced than more old-fashioned ones, especially with the neutron pattern, as I call it. You can see on the front right here, it has a really large, spacious grille, complete with some pretty large headlamps that are high density, as well as the turn signal ones. This also does include some fog lamps on it, just in case you are going to drive through some fog. In terms of backseat space, well, this vehicle does have just that. Backseat space that is certainly standard, kind of average for some people, but the way I see it, because I've been riding in the back for a long time with this vehicle, it's just amazing. It also does include its own sort of climate control, which, unlike the passenger and driver, doesn't really have its own independent temperature adjustment, but it does include oscillating vents that you can see right here, as well as a switch to direct the airflow to come down towards the legs or down towards the feet. There's also large rubber mats, which are utilized for weatherproofing, as well as keeping this vehicle a little cleaner than usual. You could fit about 5 people in total in this vehicle, but we have been able to fit more than 5 in this vehicle before then. There's also a pull-out tray complete with some cup holders that can also turn as the third seat. And so let's go ahead and move this stuff so we can show you something else. So this is pretty much the way to expand the cargo space and allow for a lot more spacious settlement to be put together. Headrest comes down automatically upon transforming the seat into the extra cargo space that you might need for really large moves or whatnot. But probably the biggest part about this vehicle right here is its engine. And so we're going to go ahead and check it out. And of course, this vehicle does come standard with its own sort of hydraulic, which can easily allow the hood to stay open for your liking. This vehicle comes standard with a pretty epically large V6 engine. And most Jeep Grand Cherokee models of this particular year in production can actually generate up to a walloping 707 horsepower, which is incredible. But this one in particular, after doing the math in terms of adjusting for pound-feet of torque as well as the cylinder usage as well as capacity, means that this 2019 Grand Cherokee is capable of going well over 500 horsepower at maximum. And that is a pretty impressive potential. And you can basically see a lot of the other stuff here as well. Windshield wiper fluid, you can see down there. It's pretty spacious in terms of how the V6 engine is pretty much put together. Pretty warm to the touch, as you can see. This is also where you can access the engine oil cap, which will allow for some pretty impressive synthetic oil fluid to be put into place. And then you also have the hydraulic pressure fuel, which is going to allow for 21 psi or 145 kilopascals in terms of utilizing the O2 coolant, as you can see by this sticker. It also utilizes a pretty impressive mixture of antifreeze and coolant, making this vehicle pretty hard to defeat in terms of really cold weather like what we're having out here. So with that in mind, that just pretty much goes to show that this is one unbelievably powerful engine, especially for a vehicle that's this recent. The interior does also allow for headphone jacks, USB, SD card, as well as an extra DC input to allow for whatever kind of entertainment media you like to use. There's also typical buttons that you'd use in terms of starting the engine automatically, which you can optionally shut off. You can also shut off the eco mode, which is going to allow for some better fuel economy, or you could also use the sport mode, which is going to allow for this vehicle's maximum power to be put together. It'll also allow the limitations of the RPM range to be lifted, giving you full control over the revolutions per minute inside the engine itself. Because it is one impressively powerful V6 for a Jeep Grand Cherokee like this. And over here, basically, is a double layered storage compartment here in the center console. This is the upper portion, and here's the lower portion, which we pretty much have filled to the top. Just making sure you're listening. And now that we got all of that taken care of, in terms of reviewing this thing inside and out, it's a pretty impressive vehicle. But now it's time to get on to pretty much the most important aspect of it, the driving. Well, that pretty much is all I have to offer with this particular vehicle. As opposed to the 2001 Jeep Grand Cherokee that I've talked about earlier this year in this particular season, the 2019 version sure has a lot to offer. A lot of different quirks and features, clever storage abilities, and amazing power straight out of its V6 engine. Unlike anything that we've ever come across so far. But of course, this is just day 5. Days 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and so on are going to be a bit of a different story from this point going on. And so, of all things considered, thank you very much for watching this part of Multiple Wheels of Steel. And if you want to see more, go down to my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.